In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about fascism and totalitarianism, in particular the countries in Europe. And again, a reminder that the two major governments other than democracy that were causing conflict was fascism and communism. Now, communism we're not going to talk too much about in this video, but it is a good reminder for the test. Fascism, however, that is going to be the government of choice for the three major nations we're going to be talking about in this video. Fascism, again, is one-party rule where your individual rights as a citizen are denied to you. There's an expectation that you'll be extremely and blindly loyal to the leader of that country, and often there are uniforms involved in special salutes, but usually just for the military, although you are expected to know them as a citizen. Okay, first up was Spain. Now, Spain didn't actually get involved with World War II, so it's totally hypothetical how they could have played a role. But we're, for the most part, glad they didn't get involved because they were very much friends with Germany, Italy, the enemies of America and the rest of Europe during World War II. In 1939, Francisco Franco became Spain's first fascist leader after a bloody civil war against the government with the support of Italy and Germany's leaders. Now, 1939 is a little bit before the war started. Some say the war did start in 39, some say World War II didn't start till 1941, but whatever the opinion is, 1939 was very close to the beginning of a new war, and Francisco, seeing that was going to happen, really wasn't that interested. He was the youngest general in Spain's history at the time of age 32, and he wasn't sure that Spain was ready for yet another major war against many different powerful opponents in Europe. So he refused to join his own allies, but he also agreed to make sure he would not join the enemies of both Germany and Italy. And he would not even aid or support them. So no guns, no cash support, nothing. Benito Mussolini. Now, he was the leader of Italy. He formed the Fascist Party in 1919 and became the dictator of Italy in 1922. Upon becoming dictator, he made it so that the Fascist Party was the only party. That's what one-party dictatorship means. And it controlled every aspect of citizens' lives. There was no more democracy or voting. Benito Mussolini, leader of the Italian Fascist Party, ruled every aspect of your life if you were an Italian citizen at this time. He suppressed rival parties, silenced the press, and he rigged elections. So I said there was no democracy. There was elections, but not really democracy because the elections were fake. He made sure that no matter what, his party always won. Anybody who dared oppose him or even criticize, just verbally, was thrown in jail, exiled, or just straight up murdered. The major fascist goal once he was in power is to shape the youth so that in the future he wouldn't have to use such violent tactics, because he was hoping to just brainwash the future generations to just be naturally loyal to the state, to the country, to the fascist party. They'd sing patriotic songs, hymns, and chants. Mussolini is always right, they would make kids say, just like we say the Pledge of Allegiance in America. This is what was going on in Italian schools at the time. He was able to successfully build the first ever completely totalitarian state that met every aspect of the definition. Adolf Hitler. This is probably the most famous individual of the unit, if not the whole class. Adolf Hitler gained fame initially not through being a leader, but through his book that he wrote while he was in prison, titled Mein Kampf, which is German for My Life or My Struggle. In that book, it listed many goals of his. Some of the more positive ones was ending reparations, which was the fact that Germany had to pay back its debt to rebuild the rest of Europe after losing World War I. Another goal was to create jobs in Germany, because Germany was going through a massive depression economically. It was a really terrible time to live in Germany in the 1920s. But this book also made clear how much he disliked, hated Jews, and actually thought that they were the enemy and a big reason why Germany was so suffering, never mind the fact that they started a war that caused them to suffer so much. Didn't matter. He was blaming the Jews for most of not only Germany's ills, but the whole world's ills. And eventually, based on the popularity and fame he built using this book and gathering the support of many, many followers, he was able to become the dictator of Germany in 1934. This was known as the Third Reich, and it, just like in Italy, was a completely totalitarian state, and everybody had absolute loyalty to Hitler and the Nazi Party, which was the name of the party that Hitler ran, and therefore was the fascist party in control. But it wasn't called the fascist party, it was called the Nazi Party. And he had secret police named the Gestapo who would help enforce his authority. So anyone that spoke out, anyone that criticized or acted in opposition, just like in Italy, Hitler would imprison, exile, or murder using the Gestapo. In 1935, just a year into his reign, he passed the Nuremberg Laws. This was a restriction on Jews, forcing them into ghettos. It deprived Jews of many rights that other German citizens had, and even forbid them to marry anybody that was not also Jewish. So Jews and non-Jews could no longer marry. He was trying to make them completely separate people from the rest of Germany. So now that we know the players, this is how World War II started as a result of the actions of these leaders, especially Italy and Germany. First, we're going to talk about Italy. Italy had a long-time rivalry with the nation of Ethiopia in Africa. Now, if you remember in the previous video, Manchuria was an example that if you invaded another country, Europe, League of Nations, and America were going to do nothing about it. So if you could successfully win a war and conquer someone else, it looked like you'd probably get away with it, and no one would try to join forces to push you back out. So taking that cue, Italy tested the waters and invaded Ethiopia successfully. And, as predicted, the League of Nations once again did nothing, confirming to the world again just how weak and ineffective it was at trying to achieve its goal of world peace. Now, going back to Germany, at the end of World War I, there was chunks of land on the borders of Germany that Germany was forced to give up as punishment for losing World War I. Well, of course, Germany wanted that back, and Hitler had the power, had the military to do it. These territories were known as the Rhineland and the Sudetenland. They're right there on the map. The Rhineland is the little orange lines right here, and the little magenta pinkish color here, that's the Sudetenland. And those are the two lands Germany wanted back, and that's exactly what they did. They took them back. Because they saw what happened with Japan, no consequences invading China. Italy, again, no consequences for invading Ethiopia. So Hitler said, hey, I'm not just going to keep on giving up this land, I'm taking it back. And Germany then expanded its borders from this middle section here to encompassing all of the color that you see around it. Now after this, the League of Nations, the rest of Europe realized, okay, we got to do something about it. But dang it, we really don't want to go to war. So worried about German aggression, but still unwilling to wage war, Britain and France set up a conference with Germany for a peace proposal. This is the proposal. Britain and France promised Hitler that Germany could keep the Rhineland, Sudetenland. Okay, you took this, and that was wrong. You can keep it, as long as you agree to stop taking more. And Hitler said, sure, yeah, I'll agree to that. And this strategy was known as appeasement. The idea was that England and France, Britain and England is the same thing, gave in to an aggressor to try to keep the peace and avoid war. So keep what you took, just please promise to take no more. And Hitler agreed to that. He was lying! Of course Hitler paid Britain and France no mind. He continued to expand. He wanted something called Lebensraum, which is German for I need more living space for my people, because they're kind of cramped in Germany. So he conquered Czechoslovakia. Still no reaction. So then he conquered Poland, which he divided in half with Russia. He said, Russia, hey, if you promise not to get involved with our business, you can have half of Poland. And Russia was like, sure, I'll take that. Russia took half of Poland. Germany took the other half. And we saw this alliance begin to grow between Germany and Italy, who were helping fund the civil war back in Spain. And Japan over there, realizing that they were making some enemies with America and Europe, potentially traveled to Germany and made a peace proposal. So Germany, Italy, and Japan became allies known as the Axis powers. Realizing their mistake too late, both Britain and France realized they had no choice but to finally declare the war they should have declared a year or two earlier on September 9th, 1939. And Britain and France would be the first two members of the alliance known as the Allied powers. And that is the beginning of World War II. We'll continue on with the actual war and the events and how it played out in Unit 7. But for now, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.